Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. This week, I'm back to I got a friend of mine, a friend of mine on the show, Brent Cooper, who is now I just drew a blank, Executive Director or CEO? What's the official title there, Brent?
Executive Director.
Executive Director, because I know I got a buddy, Matt Stevens, of course, is CEO, but Brent is Executive Director of the Green Beret Foundation, one of my favorite nonprofits, and y'all know me by now that I got a long list of them. But this one ranks up there because the Green Beret Foundation is about taking care of my brotherhood, my regiment. Brent, I appreciate you taking time out this morning, and it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Otis. Man, I'm stoked to be on with you guys. Been chatting with you now for months, or at least over the last year. So it's good to finally be able to be on the show and talk to you guys.
Yeah. Well, and I got to say, full disclosure in the influence part, I am an ambassador for the Green Beret Foundation. I feel very powerful saying that. I might start saying, have people call me Mr. Ambassador. I don't know.
Yes.
Is that on the back of your shirt there, Dad?
It is.
You got a big old ambassador on the back.
We'll have to make shirts like that. That's not a bad idea.
That idea. Yes, and if you notice that when the YouTube video comes out on this, you'll notice that Brent and I are in the Green Beret Foundation uniform of the day, and Camden's wearing a blue shirt. That's all I got to say.
You left Camden off the CC line on that memo.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Sorry,
right.
buddy.
Just crop the video out. It's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, I gotta ask you, what made you leap into taking over as the executive director for the Green Beret Foundation?
Loaded question. I had been out for about 4 years. In a nutshell, started back in the corporate world again, chasing money again. Life was good. When I got out of the military, I like to say I pulled the Heisman on it. I was like, that part of my life is over. Like I felt like I had to move on, get back into civilian life again, which I was relatively accustomed to. And I didn't really go through the process. I didn't really go through the transition process like I should have. I just kind of fell back into the lifestyle that I had known prior to the military. So when this position became available, to answer your question, it was just one of those like epiphanies. Like it just made sense, right? I saw the job description, and I had missed like serving something greater than myself. And I thought it was a great way to really effectuate some change and step back in to the regiment, to the brotherhood, without actually having to put a ruck on my back and endure the suck. So it was just an ability to help a lot of my brothers and their families that many of them are all still in, and I still keep in contact with and understand what they're going through and the family dynamic. And so I thought this is a perfect position for me. So
what I wanted to ask, actually, as we're already talking about transition, because I think that's a big theme, of course, with Green Beret Foundation, because as people transition out of the military, that's a big step for a lot of folks, and we've talked about that quite a bit. But I wanted to switch it a little bit and ask you about your transition from your civilian life into your military life, because you were a little bit of a late bloomer. We don't really talk to many folks like that. And so I wanted to see what that was like, what the calling was that brought you towards the military, and then what that adjustment period was like for you.
Oh, yeah. I always say this, I joined the military at 30 years old. Not uncommon, but quite unconventional. And for me, I had wanted to serve when I was younger, and I just kept chasing other things, self-fulfilling things, is probably the best way to say it. And then the years just progressed quickly. And before I knew it, I hit 30, and I said, if I don't do this now, this is absolutely a regret I know I will have in the future not serving my country. Decided to join, got an 18 X-ray contract, needed an age waiver to get it. But so going in, it was interesting, right? Because I'm going in, and the majority of my drill sergeants are all younger than me, yelling in my face. And I think I had more of a mental edge, if anything at all, just from a maturity standpoint. And understanding and having a different perspective of life already, right? Because a lot of guys go in the military, graduate high school, go in the military, haven't experienced the world yet, and now they're just thrown into the sharks, right? Into the water with the sharks. And so for me, it was about a different perspective, being able to go into basic training, and being able, in my opinion, to help mentor other individuals. But you learn quickly in basic training what mass punishment is all about. And so I think for me, that was the worst part, I think, was just paying for everybody else's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of not used to that in the civilian world. Yes, you're on teams in corporations and businesses, but if you mess up, you're fired. If you, I mean, significantly mess up, you're
Right.
fired, not generally the entire team that's involved in that project. Obviously a generalization, but for the most part, that's accurate. But in the military, one person messes up, you all pay the penalty. You all pay the penalty. So, but I think I learned quickly that that's an important lesson to learn, though,
Mm-hmm.
because it is life and death situation when you go down range. And it is that critical that you can trust the person to your left and to your right, that they aren't going to mess up, or they're going to do everything in their power not to mess up, because you know you all are going to suffer that consequence. That was a long
I had a
for you.
I had a 30-year-old guy in my basic training class.
Were you young? Were you 17, 18 then at the time,
I
Otis?
was 18. Yeah. No, I think I might have just turned 19. I think I might have just turned 19 when I went to basic, but he was not that guy.
Oh, he didn't have his stuff together.
No. There was no mentoring going on from him, and when the drill sergeant got in his face and he crumbled a little bit, and the drill sergeant chewed on him some more. So Drill Sergeant Gates was my drill sergeant. But anyway, I always go down that path because I love Drill Sergeant Gates.
Nice.
But I'm one of the things I always love to learn is what's that skill that you learned in SF that you apply now? Number one, that you apply now in, as the ED of the Green Beret Foundation.
That's a really good question. And the first word that comes to mind, I think, is adaptability. I think particularly with the foundation and dealing with a wide variety of so many different things going on with families and issues and struggles and pain points. And I think having to approach every single situation differently requires a certain level of adaptability, because there's no cookie cutter words or things that I'm going to tell somebody that's the same, right? It's not an assembly line. We're not manufacturing widgets and we can do the same thing for every single person. Everything is customized. Every family's different. And so it's being able to empathize and sympathize with all these individuals on a different level, and a real understanding, that empathy is huge for me. And I think in large part I've experienced, I'm 41 now, I've experienced a lot in life, ups and downs, and, ex-marriages and bankruptcies, and I've been through a lot, so I understand when people are going through these things, how to handle them.
Could you take us through just a little bit from the executive director standpoint, what that kind of process looks like, how you go about identifying these families who are looking for help in this, and then how you go about actually getting them that help and what that may look like in kind of a general sense?
Yeah, that's a great question, Camden. Let me try and summarize that, because really it's a couple pronged answer, where we work heavily with the SOCOM Care Coalition for a lot of our active duty members. So when a situation arises or an active duty member gets injured or needs something, they have advocates and they contact us. They work with a lot of benevolent organizations across the board, across the country. And so they have a deep understanding of what every single benevolent organization does. They know anytime they get an 18 series individual that comes through a request that comes up, they know what the Green Beret Foundation does. And so they immediately will reach out to us in order to help provide support to that soldier. We also provide support, though, to separated and veterans. So it's not just active duty. And so we've got ambassadors out there like Otis. We've got a lot of volunteers out there. We've got our Steel Mags program, which is comprised of the women behind the Special Forces soldiers, wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, anyone associated. So we got basically a lot of boots on the ground, eyes on the ground, ears on the ground. So when something happens, we'll get notified pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And once that happens, you know, there's minimal red tape. I'm the red tape as far as getting things done. And so we operate with a small staff, but a very effective staff. And so when stuff comes in, we're able to make decisions very quickly and then decide what type of support is needed, either financial support, you know, monetary support or non-monetary support. Maybe this individual, we can link them up with one of our partner program partners in order to provide them support that they need.
I got to ask this. I got to ask the civilian question because you guys have said 18X and 18 series about 4 times now. And I thought I was going to pick it up from context clues, but I didn't. So I just need you guys to spell that out for the rest of us.
Yeah. So the 18 X-ray contract, you know, it's just a identifier. So 18 series is the military occupational specialty identifier for all special forces soldiers. The X basically signifies they're eventually going to be an 18 Alpha, 18 Echo, 18 Delta, which is then, you know, a commo sergeant, a medic or whatnot. So the 18 X-ray is essentially saying, hey, it enables, it's basically guaranteed slots, not a guaranteed outcomes. Mm-hmm. It gives an individual off the street, Camden, if you sign an 18 X-ray contract, the Army is going to put you in what they call one station unit training, where you go to basic and infantry all in the same deal. If you pass all that, they send you right to airborne school. If you pass airborne school, they send you to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where then you'll go through a special operations prep and conditioning course to prepare you for special forces assessment and selection. So it's this long, arduous pipeline.
Yeah, how long is that? That's like a year plus, isn't it? Before you get to the Q course?
It was almost it is basically almost a year. By the time, all the kind of waiting and slots open up. Because I started basic training in March of 2010, and then I believe I started the Q course January, February, probably January of 2011. So it's almost, you know, a 9-month, 12-month process of just strict training. Mm-hmm. And as long as you pass everything, you get an opportunity to go to Special Forces Assessment and Selection. And if you make that, then you finally just get selected to start the Special Forces Qualification course, which is another 12 to 18 months to 24 months if you're a medic of getting your butt kicked. And if anywhere along that process you get injured or quit or fail or whatnot, you automatically become an 11 Bravo, which is infantryman, needs of the Army, and they'll send you anywhere they want. I tell people this all the time. I think the Army was genius for making the 18 X-ray program. I think it was a fantastic way of bolstering the infantry, because a lot of guys sign up for 18 X-ray and the probability of success isn't that high. So a lot more individuals went to the infantry, which is great. You know, 11 Bravos are fine.
Well, it's almost like
Camden, you have a cousin who went through 18 X-ray, and as much as I tried, he did not pass the land navigation. Wes, if you remember. I know it's been a while since you've seen him, but yeah, Wes got lost out in the STAR exam a couple of times, too many. So
that was a tough one. Oh yeah, that will make grown men cry quickly. And, just like anybody. Oh, I wanted to quit so many times. You just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, what? And why am I doing this? And you have this internal struggle and battle with yourself, and thinking of all the reasons why you wanted to do this to begin with. You know, and all the reasons why you don't want to fail, and then see which one wins, you know. But no, it was fantastic. Hopefully that answered your question a little bit.
Definitely. I've got to work in the civilian questions every now and then, because
that's great.
You guys will start dropping acronyms and things and just keep going like we all know what you're talking about, but a lot of us don't.
Perfect.
Well, that drive is something that's really kind of an interesting thing. You know, you said adaptability is the key skill that you've brought into being the ED. I also want to ask you about that whole drive thing, because when you took over the GBF, I mean, flat out, it was a shit show. I mean, I'm not going to pull any punches. It was a shit show. And by the way, you and General Tovo, Ken Tovo have done a lot, and the board and everybody else involved done a lot to fix it. So I'm curious when when first off, when you said, sure, sign me up to be the ED, did you reach back into that rucksack of selection and assessment and feel like you're doing it again?
I did. I'm glad you said that. I didn't know how much you want to go into that, but yeah, it was a shit show. And I remember during the interview process, the old board they were very candid with me, very transparent with me. There was a lot of stuff though I still didn't know and wouldn't come to find out until I got into the position and seeing how big of a shit show it really was. But I remember during the interview process of seeing the foundation in the state they were. And I told him, I said, look, if you want somebody to come in here and the ship is smooth sailing and the wind is calm, I'm not your guy. Complacency is my enemy. I will be bored out of my mind. The way things were just really bode well for my personality type. I love fixing things. I love taking something and making it better. That's kind of just also a personal mantra for me. Like every day I'm constantly trying to better myself. And some days I suck at it. Some days I feel like I take 5 steps back, but it's always a constant thought process of just how can I be a little bit better than before? And so coming into this, it was diving in and saying, hey, there's really nowhere to go but up. I mean, yes, I could absolutely tank this, but we're kind of already tanked. So it was nowhere to go but up.
The hole in the bottom of the ship is what.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I came in and really the first step is trying to figure out, do I have all the right people on the bus? And then second to that, are they sitting in the right seats? And now after about a year and a half, we got a fantastic team, a fantastic board, rowers. We got people in the boat that are rowing, not just sitting there looking around like, hey, you do all the work. Like we work our asses off. I think you have to. And almost just as importantly as adaptability is passion, right? Passion, empathy, sympathy. Like if you don't have that in the nonprofit space, you're not going to succeed because this is a 24/7 job. It really is. I tell people, if I don't answer my phone, if I don't text you back within a very reasonable time frame, like usually text is best, I'm either dead or sleeping. And you got to prioritize like, well, how important is this? How important is this? But we're at the needs of our community. So we don't have banker hours here. It's not 9 to 5. Hopefully you get your support request in by then, or we can't help you. If somebody contacts us at 10 o'clock at night and they're flat out like a lizard and they need to get into a substance abuse program, we're going to step in and make sure somebody's talking to them and or talk somebody off a ledge, figuratively speaking. I don't know if I answered your question there. See, rabbit hole.
I think you did, because really the follow on to that is, as a fixer, if, in that mindset, one of the things that I've experienced, both in my personal business experience and, fortunately the Army changed jobs quickly enough in the Army where you never hit this. But what do you do when you feel like you fixed it? How do you, because there's that point. And I know what, everything has room for improvement. I agree with you, but the ship ain't sinking no more. So what do you do now?
That's a good point. And since I started, it's been a long-term, and playing the long run, right? There's short-term things that we can do for let's do this, let's do that for a quick win, a quick injection of the win. But what I saw was an organization that has done a lot of great work out there, right? Just happened to fall off the rails for a while. And so a lot of people dispersed, a lot of supporters, a lot of Green Berets, people in the community I saw, And they really just kind of took a step back. And I think what I saw was they took a step back, and some people just hit the road and they're like, hey, I want nothing to do with them anymore. But I think most people took a step back and just said, I'm going to wait to see how this plays out. You know, and I like to say it's kind of like a relationship. You got these great friends and they're married and then they get divorced, but you're friends with both the husband and wife, and you're like, oh, which one do I pick? And a lot of people just took a step back. And so when I saw that,
I'll tell you, sorry to interrupt you, but I'll tell you from my end, that's exactly where I was. I felt like two of my friends got, a couple had just gotten divorced, and it's like, I don't know which one to ask and call, go have a beer with. Yeah.
Right. Right. And because of, legal reasons, Green Beret Foundation wasn't able to really say anything. And so that kind of made things more difficult for people because they didn't really know what was going on. So for me, when I kind of saw that's really the perspective of the community, then it's about rebuilding trust. And trust is absolutely the most difficult thing to build in professional, business, anything. If I could snap my fingers and build trust, I wish I could. But trust is built on consistent and continuous effort of doing the right thing until people see that that is the norm, right? That is who you are. And so I think for a lot of people, the trust was broken with the Green Beret Foundation, and that's what needed to be rebuilt. And so no matter what we did, and I've said this before on other shows, one of the first things I did is come into the organization. We have a whiteboard, and I wrote 2 things on the board, probably within the first week. And it was, 1, does this service our soldier? 2, will this make our donors proud? If you're doing number 1, number 2 is always a resounding yes. You're always going to make your donor proud if you're servicing your soldier. And those 2 questions are really the guiding questions on how I navigate any decision that needs to be made. Any decision that needs to be made, or how we provide any support to any soldier or their family, is guided essentially by those 2 questions. And when you make it that binary, in my opinion, every decision becomes relatively simple. Then you just have to strategically and tactically figure out how to get to that solution. Mm-hmm. But when you already know the answer, like that has to be the answer. Does this help our soldiers and their families? Will this make our donors proud? Because I got a fiduciary responsibility to our donors to ensure that every single penny that comes in is spent properly. Mm-hmm. I completely forgot what your question was, Otis, man. I just started talking.
Oh, no.
We're good. I was going to ask, so go ahead.
Just remember before I lose that. So now that we're on the right path, right? It's the ship's not sinking anymore. We've done a 180. We have a ton of great momentum. So many people are coming back into the fold. I got individuals contacting me daily, just basically saying, put me in, coach. I want back in. Like, I see what you're doing. I took a step back for the last year and a half. There's a lot of buzz. Green Beret Foundation's back on track. And for me, it was a rocky road the last year and a half because I knew what we were doing was right. It was just a matter of time before people started seeing that. And I think people are starting to see that now, and there's a lot of momentum. So to answer your question, Otis, now that we're smooth sailing, the initiative is still to grow. We still have to grow. We're a nonprofit organization, but just like a for-profit business, you're not growing, you're dying, period. And the needs of our community, the needs of our Green Beret community, right? We're still suffering. Green Beret's in, first one's in, last one's out. Our guys are still deployed all over the world, right? At any given time. 60% of all casualties underneath the Special Operations umbrella have been sustained by Green Berets since 9/11. Rangers, SEALs, MARSOC, you name it. Green Berets are the ones that are suffering the most. But people don't really know that. People don't know that because other organizations, or I should say other military branches, maybe beat their chests a little more.
I'll say it. You don't have to say it. My brother's in the SEALs.
I didn't know what you're talking about.
Well, I've got to tell my story on that then, because I remember it would have been right after we got back from Germany, I think, Dad. and the timing may or may not be right on this, but there was some big SEAL mission going on in Afghanistan, and it was all over the papers, and there was all this stuff. And I went home and I was like, Dad, how come I never read anything about you doing it? He goes, because I don't talk about it, boy.
Exactly.
And that just was a whole new perspective for me of why you hear about certain things and why you don't hear too much about Green Berets very often.
Silent professionals,
Yes, sir.
we're trained that way. Now, in fairness, as far as how, what the SEALs do or other branches that maybe boast a little more about what they're doing, it's helped them. When you look at the Navy SEAL Foundation, fantastic organization led by Robin King, fantastic woman, and they are doing it right. But they've been helped, right, by Hollywood and the media and so much publicity that it makes it a little easier. I'm not discrediting their great work, but the Green Beret Foundation, right, it's much more organic as far as how we're having to grow because we don't have the media and everyone behind us. We had the movie 12 Strong, but that's one movie.
Yeah, we've got John Wayne's Green Beret, the Green Berets, and the what was it? Early 70s? No, late 60s. I think the
60s,
movie.
I think it was.
Yeah, right. And then
a long time
12
ago.
Strong. That's our two movies.
There's not a lot, and not really to dive too deep into other, soft organizations. We're all doing great work, but it really is sometimes for us, the Green Berets, since we don't talk about it, it becomes much more difficult for the civilian population, which I understand immensely, right? I spent all my 20s as a civilian. And so I recognize that gap that needs to be, or that bridge that needs to be built between the civilian speak and the military speak, right? It's completely different vernaculars, completely different lingo, all the acronyms that the military use, right? That I had to learn quickly that I never knew before. But basically just an understanding of who Green Berets are. And that really is, that warrior diplomat mentality. Communicate first, shoot second.
So I think this is a really interesting area because this honestly brings back some other conversations. I know Dad and I, we had hunting at some point where you basically broke down the difference between Rangers and Green Berets and all this stuff. Because to me, it was just all the same thing, just special forces. You guys just go and doing the Army things, and that's all it was to me. And you started talking through a little bit more, and I can see exactly what you're saying, Brent, about how it's almost it's less sexy of a story, really. It's a very important job, and there's obviously it needs to be done. But when you break down what's really happening, and like Dad, I think you could go through and break this down much more quickly than I could, but like the difference between a Ranger and a Green Beret, one of those is a lot more attractive for the Hollywood type things than the other thing. And so I'd be really interested, Brent, to hear how you're trying to bridge that gap and what you're doing. I'm probably not calling Jeff Bosley out in LA and, getting him to work on some Green Beret movies. That's probably not the best way forward, but what are you doing to kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Camden. And you're really spot on as far as kind of the confusion between all the special operations forces organizations or units. And there's one thing that's always very confusing that I've seen the media or civilians always use is they lump special forces. They say special forces and it's everybody. When the reality is the U.S. Army Special Forces is only referring to the Army, U.S. Army Special Forces, which is just better known as the Green Berets. As far as Rangers, SEALs, Marine people, Marine Corps, they fall under the Special Operations umbrella. So I just like to say there's a Special Operations umbrella, and then there's all the Special Operations units underneath it. Army Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, et cetera, right? So that's kind of a good word picture. But a lot of time that's lost, and they just say Special Forces and they refer to everybody. But I think, so there's a educational piece there that I'm trying to achieve, where I'm trying to make sure that people understand that Special Forces only refers to the U.S. Army Special Forces, otherwise known as the Green Berets. And then I look at, okay, sometimes that's still kind of confusing. I get that. I was a civilian for a long time. It's still confusing no matter how many times people say it. And so I look at it from, okay, what's our competitive advantage? What is our competitive advantage over the SEALs or over the Rangers or over anyone else? And I truly believe, and this is why I became a Green Beret, is that warrior diplomat mentality, where we are going into foreign countries, and some of these other units that are doing direct action and doing great things, snatch and grab and blah, 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 fantastic. Green Berets do that, but we actually go in and effectuate that change, through communicating, through training our partner's force, train the trainer type mentality. And that really appealed to me. That really appealed to me as that primary mission, and why I became a Green Beret. So to answer your question, our competitive advantage being that warrior diplomat mentality and understanding that I believe the majority of civilians, that will resonate with a lot of civilians. Because I think when you start talking about going in there with guns blazing and fast roping and doing all this stuff, like, it sounds cool in your head, but what is that? But when you actually talk about a Green Beret going in and building a well in a community so they can have water, or building a security outpost so they can guard their own village, helping them, like, that resonates, right? That resonates, and people can see that and understand that. And we're still doing cool guy shit.
Yeah. Well, it just reminded me of a question a friend of mine who, she's, not related to the military at all, complete, kind of that, just doesn't have any experience. And she asked me just a couple of days ago, what's the differentiator a Green Beret brings to the business? And I thought that was, I'd love to hear, because you just talked about that kind of in a general sense and what Green Berets bring to the battlefield. But let's flip it. What's a Green Beret bring to the business?
The soft skills, that adaptability, communication ability, teamwork, all these things that you're inherently trained. You're trained as a Green Beret for these soft skills. And I think a lot of Green Berets underestimate those soft skills that they have. And I talk to a lot of guys that are transitioning, whether, hey, I was only in 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. And they think, well, what am I bringing to the table? Like, I can tell you how to assemble and disassemble 20 different, weapons. But what am I bringing to a corporate environment? And so what I think I try to convey is, again, to your question, like, to individuals seeking Green Berets or tip of the spear type individuals, are those soft skills that they bring. And yes, maybe they don't understand the business vernacular yet, but when you get a Green Beret into an organization, they're going to climb higher and faster than anybody else in that organization, simply because of their mental drive, and those aspects, their servant leadership philosophy, of they're not going to expect anybody to do anything that they wouldn't do themselves, period. So having that, I think, is a huge edge that a Green Beret would bring to the table.
I love hearing that, because that means that something is true in there. And I'll even use something I've talked about a couple of times, that's approaching the capital T, the big T true, as opposed to just the little t true. And the reason I say that is because what you just described is what I said to this young lady. And that means, there's a couple of days between when you went to the Q course and when I went through the Q course, because I went through the last hard one, by the way. Just always remember that.
Right. The last hard one.
Yeah.
Might be true.
Yeah. But the reality is we've kept that theme throughout, and those skill sets, and it's not just the skills that you learn in the Q course or on the team or doing the missions. It's the type of people that we recruit into the Green Berets. And I think that's really something special to me. And I think I'm going to bring us back around. Watch this segue here. Bring us back around to the Green Beret Foundation and the fact of why why our brotherhood has a passion for the GBF and what you do. And the reason, what I'd really like to hear, if you don't mind, would be give us a helping a Green Beret and or family story. I'd love to hear, one of those stories, if you don't mind.
Oh man, I got a lot.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Trying to think of it. I got quite a few in my tool bag. A common one, a more common one, which is very unfortunate, is there's a lot of cancer going on. I mean, a lot of individuals being diagnosed with certain cancers, and it's not just the soldier, it's the family members, it's the spouse. And so I can think of several off the top of my head where the spouse has been diagnosed, some active duty, some even retired soldiers and their spouses were diagnosed. And when you think about your life right now, think about your daily routine. Everything you do, it becomes second nature. You get up, you have your coffee, and you do this and you do that. And then think of somebody just driving a semi truck through your home and disrupting everything. That is what it's like when something major like that or catastrophic happens to a family and it disrupts everything. And so when you look at what I'm getting at is, yes, whether they have medical support or insurance, whether through the VA or TRICARE or whatnot, that's going to help them through that. Think about everything else in their life that the VA or TRICARE isn't covering. Loss of job, children that need to be watched over now because one of the spouses needs to be bedside, and appointments after appointments at the hospital, and now having to completely tailor your life differently. And so that's where the Green Beret Foundation steps in. And when I talk about adaptability to situations, it's talking to these families. It's understanding what is going on from A to Z in your life. What is that daily routine that just got wrecked? And how can we help fill in the gaps and put it all back together again so you can continue having to endure this particular situation, but we are going to help you make your life as best as we possibly can. Hopefully that's a good way of describing kind of how we operate without actually saying specifically, instances, but there's a lot of instances in how we help in that capacity.
I see similarities between what you're saying now, Brent, between the way that you two both today and then on other Green Berets that we've had on, and the way they talk about problem solving in general, is that you're not really wanting to go in and just solve the problem and come in and be the hero or anything like that. You're looking to come in and give them the tools to get back to their own life and to take control of their own life. And I think that's a nuance that a lot of nonprofits miss. And I think it's a really, really cool thing that y'all are doing.
Absolutely, Camden, and that's just it. Because I could sign checks all day, I could hear of issues all day, and be like, "Oh, great, yeah, they need $1,500 to help them out."
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, that's short-term solutions. We're not about short-term solutions. We understand sometimes short-term emergencies need to be met, and we will meet those. But we're all about the long run, all about the long term. I'm not about Band-Aids over bullet wounds. I'm about how can we help this soldier and their family. Because I know life is already hard enough. It is so damn difficult. And so we come in and we really take a full customized approach on how can we help you in the long run. And that's exactly, it is, and it's nuanced, but that's where the adaptability is required. And some families are like, hey, I just love the fact that I know you're here.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the fact that I know what you can provide, and I can call you or text you or email you at moment's notice. For lack of a better term, like for Green Berets and their families, we're an additional kind of insurance policy, right? We're not going to be giving you $1 million for it by any means, but we absolutely are going to help you when shit hits the fan, and your life just got derailed.
Mm-hmm. I think I have to add on to that real quick, Dad, before you go, because one of the things that came to mind immediately when you were talking about that is the idea of the kind of like natural stress levels that we all have, and how much, if those come too high, your performance in your life kind of degrades around it because you're so stressed out all the time. And that, you said, you took it out of my mouth, that the insurance, you're kind of like an extra insurance policy. Because the analogy that I was going to draw it to is studies of farmers around the world that have insurance on their crops versus ones that don't. And the funny thing is that the ones that have insurance wind up being like, it's something like 25% more productive, because they're able to get up every morning and go get to work, because they know if they screw up, or if something bad happens, or if there's a storm that rolls in and kills all their crops, that they have something to support them. And so they're able to just go and really do their own thing, live their own life, but without that stress in the background. And I think that's exactly what y'all are doing.
It is. It's absolutely what we're doing. And it's easy too. A lot of nonprofits that are playing the short game, it's not sustainable, right? Particularly when, just like a for-profit, we need money to survive. But also to a even more important aspect, these Green Berets, what they're doing is never going to end. There's constantly going to be deployed, constantly going to be in harm's way, because that is what the mission is. And so they're always going to need that quote unquote insurance policy in the background. Mm-hmm. And so my whole vision is to build a sustainable organization, because absolutely there'll come a time here where I will build this organization where I need it to, and then somebody else will need to come in and take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. Right? I know my limitations and my skill sets and what I'm able to, and where I'm able to get this organization to, and then someone else can come in and it'll already be on the right course, but they'll be able to even take it even higher. Mm-hmm. Like if I'm not thinking in that way, I'm doing it wrong. And so that's my hope and that's my vision. And we came out with a new video, and that was it. My goal is to grow and to build a sustainable organization for decades to come. Mm. And that's only able to be done by doing the right thing and doing it consistently, right? It's a tortoise and the hare analogy.
Well, it's not the tortoise and the hare, because this is what I just heard, and I never thought about it this way. It's what we do. It's inherent to what Green Berets do. We play the long game, whether we're in uniform or helping the regiment back. And when you said that, I was like, damn, that's who we are. We always go in, what country XYZ and whatever continent of the world, we don't go in for that 3-week J set. And Cam, you'll have to look that one up. We don't go in for that 3-week J set and just say, hey, here we are, woohoo, let's do some training, cool guy stuff. All right, we're out. We realize that we're part of the long game and the long plan for sustainable operations of that nation's security forces. Green Beret Foundation is taking on that same mantra with our guys that need that help. It's not just, hey, let's put a couple of ramps in the house because now your wheelchair or whatever the problem might be, and then hey, we're out. We're not playing that game. We're playing the long game. We're playing long-term, sustainable, self-sufficient, train the trainer lifestyle. And I think that's really cool. And because I hadn't thought about the Green Beret Foundation that way until you were talking that. And that's just, man, I'm like,
yeah. I'm glad you said that, because that is absolutely my vision. Because I think it's easy from the outside looking in to just say, oh, nonprofit organization, they're just writing checks to people. Mm-hmm. The reality is we're now taking a very proactive approach on talking to our community and what's really going on, the needs of the community, mental health, substance abuse, addiction, and all these things. And so when I hear all this and I know all this and we see the requests coming in, that's where our adaptability and our ability to then, hey, do we need to tweak a program? Do we need a new program partner to pull in to specifically meet the needs of a vast majority of individuals we see that are now dealing with this or suffering with this, or family members that are dealing with a certain situation? So it's this constant evolution of a huge jigsaw puzzle that we're constantly putting together. And it just keeps building and building and building. and we're finding the right pieces and continuing building on this. And I don't think it's a puzzle that'll ever be completed, and that's okay. But the idea is for that puzzle to keep growing and you keep finding the right pieces.
That was pretty poetic.
It was.
I
mean,
I've
that's
never said
why
that
I
before
kind
in
of
my
like,
life.
yeah, well, that's pretty nice.
Inspiring.
Put a bow on that one. Write that one down or listen to the recording and capture that, because that's pretty good.
Put that in my
You know,
signature line.
The other thing I throw at you, and before I jumped on the whole long game thing, was the individual support. And Camden, I'm going back to JJ, our one of our guests a few weeks ago, JJ Peterson, Dr. JJ Peterson. You always got to say it that way and make fun of him. He's part of the Story brand, and what their mantra is about is helping your client be the hero in their own story. And GBF, that's what you're doing. I don't know if you've thought about it that way either, but you're the guide. And to break out the definition a little bit better for you, in a story, every story has a hero, a guide, and a villain or a problem that they have to overcome. And the guide's job is to help the hero transform. The hero is the one in the story that transforms. And that's the GBF. You're the guide for our soldiers and our families from the regiment to help them transform to what's next.
It's a great way to put it. And what you just said, that took me a little time to recognize that. When I started June 2019, right? Basically just they took me and plop right into the deep end. And there was a learning curve. There absolutely was a learning curve. There's no denying that. And a lot of it still, first couple of months is assessing everything, learning everything, what's working, what's not working, what are we doing right that we should keep doing, what are we doing wrong that we need to change and do right, et cetera, right? A gamut of all these things. A lot of issues, a lot of operational changes need to be done. And to your point, I didn't really recognize that for several months in, as far as, hey, we can either be an organization that sits back and waits for the phone to ring or an email to come in, and then I can take my pen and what do you need this month? I'll write you a little check. Or we can really do something great. We can do something phenomenal. We can really be, and we are, the premier organization supporting Green Berets and their families out there, solely dedicated to supporting Green Berets. A lot of great soft organizations out there. And so you start looking at stuff, this year, just a couple months ago, we got a 4-star rating by Charity Navigator, the nation's largest independent charity evaluator. Green Beret Foundation's never had a rating with Charity Navigator. Now we have the highest, up there with Navy SEALs, SOWS, Special Operations Warrior Foundation, these elite organizations out there that we now are in that category. And again, this isn't something we gave ourselves a little moral victory or a pat on the back. This is an independent evaluator that's saying, what you guys are doing is awesome. We've evaluated numerous different criteria. So that was huge for us, right? That's like winning an Oscar in the nonprofit world. But more importantly than that, which I don't care about awards or accolades, it speaks to our donors. It speaks to people out there that, yes, had to take a step back for a little bit and had to trust us again. And people that used to be giving and maybe they weren't giving, and now they're giving again because they say, hey, you're an organization that I know, and you have proof that these funds are being used truly to be invested back into the mission, And so that's why we got a great staff, man. We got 4, and I tell people this, we got 4 full-time people, right? But we have a lot of boots on the ground, and we rely on those volunteers and individuals like yourself, Otis, to basically advocate and speak about who we are and talk about who we are. And that's important to me. That's the long game, because 1, people just need to know who we are. That's step 1. Just get to know who we are. right? And then over time, they will see the good work we are doing. And eventually, my hope is always eventually, they will be compelled enough to, and impassioned enough to be like, this is something I can get behind. This is something I understand and something I can get behind long term. Because I love individuals that want to give me $20, you know, quick injection of cash there, and we're going to use this for good, but you have to make it sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's next? I mean, we've kind of danced around it a little bit, but and just so you know, I want to come back and say, hey, what fundraisers do you have on the calendar, kind of next 30 days sort of thing. But what's next for the GBF going forward? Your kind of next vision.
Yeah, next vision. You know, we've got fantastic core programs in place where we're helping Gold Star families and surviving families. We have a transition piece we're doing very well. We've got casualty care, which we do exceptionally well. Extended support, which provides support for alternative therapies that the VA or DOD does not cover, Department of Defense doesn't cover. Where I'm looking to shift us, those will never change. Those are core programs. They tweak a little bit, kind of like we discussed on the needs of our community. But what we're really focused on right now is a lot of the mental health aspect, suicide prevention, and we've got some great initiatives in place in order to combining more forces as far as program partners. Because what I recognize, and I think from my understanding, is that GBF tried to do a lot of things alone prior, and I just don't have that mentality. All I understand is a team mentality, but I'm very cognizant of I can't cannibalize ourselves, right? But I can absolutely partner with other organizations that are like-minded and provide something specific that we simply don't have the resources in-house to provide. If I'm not able to partner with them, I'm not doing my job right. Because at the end of the day, any Green Beret or any family member that comes to me, I need to be able to help them, whether it's monetarily or non-monetarily, or at least connect the dot and point them to an organization out there that can help them specifically. So to answer your question, we're gearing a lot of stuff, right? We're getting out there. We've teamed up also with Mount Sinai and other hospitals out there on doing research studies on cancer and exposures. But like I said, I think we're gearing towards mental health, suicide prevention, and really looking at resources because we're seeing that's very prevalent. And I think, actually, I don't have any data to really correlate this, but my gut tells me it's always been prevalent. It's always been an issue. I think we're finally getting to a point where we're kind of starting to break that stigma of being able to talk about it. So now that we're talking about it more, people are just seeing that it's happening. They think it's happening more. It just was always happening, but it was behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Right? People have always been enduring these issues and problems and mental things, but I think now we're talking about it more and helping individuals, and breaking that stigma is huge for me, man. And that doesn't make us weak, it makes us stronger. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Well, how about some, what are the next big couple of events you got going on, fundraisers and those sort of things?
Well, we're scaling down as far as going into the holidays. We kind of scaled down our events a little bit as people get into the holidays. Obviously, with COVID, we've had to pivot because a lot of our events were outdoors, shooting events, golf events. And so we've done some virtual online stuff, and we're going to be doing some more stuff coming up. But probably in Q1 of 2021 is when we'll kick off more. Hopefully, we can get back to the live in-person events as well. But I think now COVID's changed everyone's life indefinitely. And so I think that virtual platform will always be there, and we'll start to try and capitalize on that a little bit more.
Oh, great. So
that didn't answer your question at all, really.
No. I mean, you don't have every date and event memorized, listed in your head. I mean,
no, I don't. But
okay.
greenberryfoundation.org, we got a list of events on there.
That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Man, This has been great, and I apologize, Camden. You know, another one of those Green Beret sort of things where it's like we're talking in code and
All right, man.
different things like that. And but since we did that and left you out as the third person in the crowd, I'm going to let you go first and tell us what you learned.
Well, I got two easy ones because the first one I just had to say the or not even acronym, but the 18X program. That was really insightful. That's something I'd never heard broken down. So that was really interesting. And then the other thing, Brent, that you said, and I don't think I'd heard you say this before, Dad, was warrior diplomat. And that was something that it kind of, I sat back in my chair and thought to all the different Green Berets we interviewed and went, yeah, no, that sounds right. And it kind of just checks all the boxes for those guys. So I thought that was perfect. Yeah, so two easy ones for me today.
Awesome. Brent, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah. Well, first, definitely want to thank you guys. And I did warn you, I go down rabbit holes when I start talking. What really resonated is when you said that we're a guide. In my mind, I always knew that, but I didn't have the word associated with it. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, as you say, I like analogies and stuff. Like I can take that to heart a lot more as far as understanding our role. And I truly do believe that is our role as being a guide for our community and their families out there. So I appreciate that.
It's awesome. And for me, I already talked about it. I mean, because it was just like blew my mind, almost that blinding flash of the obvious is that long-term objective, the thought process of everything that we do in the grander regiment, whether we're in uniform on the ground in some foreign country or back here at home helping each other, we're in it for the long game. And I love the fact that that's what the Green Beret Foundation is looking at, is the long game, not just the, hey, I'm going to take care of this and then, done good, moving out. No, it's the long game. And I think that's awesome. Brent, man, this has been great. Really appreciate it. Give us a couple of nuggets about where we find more information and how people can support the Green Beret Foundation.
Absolutely. We're on all social media platforms. You can find us there. We have great following on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, so many platforms. Website, greenberetfoundation.org. You can donate on there, learn more about our programs, get a much better understanding. We've got our new video up there, which is an awesome video that also has some program recipients in there explaining a little bit about how Green Beret Foundation helps. So just appreciate you guys allowing me to come on and talk a little bit about my story and the foundation and where we're going.
Awesome. Camden, run us out, please.
All right. Thank y'all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to Brent Cooper of the Green Beret Foundation for joining us today, and our sponsors, MASH, Military and Athletic Strength Hemp Oil, and Verbi Virtual Events. You can check out recent episodes of The Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.